The galaxy was asleep when the signal came. The Dominion's outer patrol routes, stretching across light years of nothingness, were dead silent, as they always were. No trade convoys, no pirate signals, not even the whisper of dark matter activity. It was the kind of emptiness that made the stars feel like eyes, watching, waiting. Captain Taka Vresh of the Zetherian Dominion leaned back in his command chair aboard the Vorkal, half listening to the rhythmic hum of the engines, half drifting into the dull monotony of space patrol. But then, at 0300 ship cycle, something broke the silence. A tremor. A ghost ping. It wasn't much at first, just a ripple on the long-range sensors, faint, erratic, the kind of interference that usually meant debris from some forgotten battle. Yet the reading refused to fade. Instead, it pulsed again, and again, slowly, intentionally, as if something was trying to be found. The sensor officer, a young Zytherian named Kelnor, frowned and adjusted his scanners. "Sir, we're picking up a derelict structure, metallic signature, human alloy pattern." The word hit the bridge like a shock wave. For a heartbeat, no one moved. Human. The term itself was almost a taboo in the Dominion, an ancient ghost story whispered in military academies and used as propaganda in the Senate. Humanity, the extinct species, the only known civilization to have burned itself out rather than bow to the Dominion's rule. They were gone, erased, reduced to myth and radiation. No one had ever seen proof they truly existed, until now. Captain Vresh's second-in-command, a scarred veteran named Relac, broke the silence first. "That's impossible. Humans were purged nearly 3,000 cycles ago. Every record confirms it." Kelnor swallowed, staring at his display. And yet, the readings match the archives exactly. The structure's composition, the hull curvature. This isn't Dominion design. It's primitive, but old, very old. The captain rose slowly, his heavy boots echoing across the deck. "Show me." The hollow projector came alive, projecting a rotating image above the table. There it was, a ship, drifting aimlessly through the void. Its hull was fractured, scorched, and silent. One wing was missing, the other hung by shattered support struts. And yet, the core of the vessel seemed untouched, as if time itself had refused to claim it. Through the darkness, the faintest letters could be seen, burned into the ancient metal. UNS Theseus. The captain's breath caught in his throat. He knew that name. Every Zytherian officer did. The Theseus was the last recorded Terran ship to transmit before the final Battle of Sol. According to the Dominion's own archives, it had been destroyed in orbit of Mars during the cleansing firestorm that ended humanity's defiance. But there it was, still adrift, still whispering. "Send a boarding team," Vresh ordered finally, his voice tight with curiosity and unease. "Secure any artifacts and transmit all data to Central Command. No one else is to know of this until we understand what we're looking at." As the Vorkal maneuvered closer, the scale of the ancient vessel became apparent. It was enormous, larger than expected for pre-faster-than-light design. Pockmarks from weapon strikes scarred its surface, but there was no debris trail, no sign of where it had come from or what had struck it. The ship drifted as though frozen in time. The docking clamps latched onto the hull with a metallic groan that reverberated through the Dominion cruiser like a dying heartbeat. The boarding crew of 6 assembled in the airlock, weapons charged, visors sealed. None spoke. The atmosphere inside the human ship was unknown, and more than that, the thought of stepping aboard a ghost of a dead species unsettled even the bravest. When the outer door slid open, a wave of ancient air flooded in, cold, metallic,
and still carrying the faint scent of something they couldn't identify. It wasn't death, it was memory.
"Recording active," the lead engineer murmured, his voice trembling slightly. The beam of his light cut through the dark corridor beyond the airlock. What they saw was both eerie and mesmerizing. The ship was dead, but not destroyed. The walls were lined with dormant screens, control panels, and interfaces that looked like relics from a museum. Dust floated like ash. The Dominion scanners reported no life signs, no movement, no energy readings.
And yet, the deeper they went, the stronger the feeling grew that something was watching.
One of the soldiers, young, nervous, spoke up. "Feels like a tomb."
"Stay sharp," the squad leader muttered, raising his plasma rifle. "If there's anything left on this ship, we'll find it."
They passed through several bulkheads, each sealed long ago, but now corroded enough to force open. Strange human symbols covered the walls, letters and numbers long forgotten. The ship's bridge was their target, located deep in the central deck. As they advanced, their lights flickered, and faint vibrations shuddered through the floor beneath their boots.
"Captain," Kelnor's voice crackled over the comm, "I'm detecting a magnetic anomaly from inside the human ship. It's small, but it's growing."
"Growing?" Vresh frowned. "Define growing."
Before the ensign could respond, the power inside the Theseus flickered to life. Just for a moment, a heartbeat of light. Emergency strips along the walls glowed faint blue. Screens blinked. And somewhere deep in the ship, a low hum began to resonate, like the deep breath of something awakening after centuries of slumber.
The team froze, weapons raised. Their lights danced nervously across the walls. Then came the voice.
At first, it was faint, just a whisper of static echoing through their helmets. Then it sharpened, words forming in a language no alien had spoken for millennia. Yet somehow, they all understood it perfectly. It wasn't translated. It didn't need to be.
"You shouldn't have come." The words weren't shouted. They weren't angry. They were calm, deliberate, and heavy with something far worse than malice: knowing. The lights along the corridor flared, illuminating the ancient human ship in ghostly blue. Panels began to hum. Old machinery stirred, gears turning for the first time in 3,000 years. The Dominion soldiers backed away slowly, but the airlock had already sealed shut behind them. The ship had them. Captain Vresh's voice came through the comm. "Team 1, report. What's happening in there?" Static. Then, faintly, "Captain, the ship is alive." And then, the transmission cut to black. The bridge of the Vorkal fell silent. The ancient Terran ship, once thought dead and forgotten, now glowed faintly in the void, as if exhaling after an eternity of holding its breath. And somewhere, buried deep within the vessel's core, something opened its eyes. It had waited long enough. For the next 6 hours, the Dominion cruiser Vorkal circled the derelict in uneasy silence. Every attempt to reach the boarding team had failed. No voice, no biometrics, not even the faintest hint of a distress signal. The Theseus floated motionless, a dead giant lit by ghostly internal glows, as though its bones had begun to smolder from within. Captain Takar Vresh stood on the bridge with his claws clasped tight behind his back, eyes fixed on the image of the ship displayed before him. It was wrong, all of it. A relic from a dead civilization should not have been capable of reactivation. It should have remained a corpse, mute and forgotten. Yet the scanners told a different story.
The magnetic anomaly had become a pulse, rhythmic and steady, as if the vessel had rediscovered its own heartbeat. "Sir," Kelnor began, his voice trembling despite his efforts to control it, "the anomaly is expanding throughout the vessel's systems. There's now a faint energy signature originating from what appears to be the main reactor. But that reactor predates even the Dominion's early stellar drives. It shouldn't be able to function." "Unless," Relac interjected grimly, "something on board rebuilt it." The captain turned sharply. "Are you suggesting sentience?" "I'm suggesting we're dealing with something that doesn't obey the natural decay of time," Relac replied. "No power source lasts this long. No AI persists without degradation after millennia. And yet that ship, that human ship, is talking to us." Vresh felt the unease settle deep in his chest. The humans had been notorious for their unpredictable technology. They were inventive, reckless, unbound by reason or caution. During the Old Wars, Dominion analysts had recorded hundreds of examples of human engineering that defied standard galactic design. Machines fueled by chaos, weapons that learned mid-battle, fleets that fought even after losing command. They had been clever in a way the Dominion had never fully understood. And perhaps that misunderstanding had been their greatest mistake. The comms officer interrupted his thoughts. "Captain, incoming transmission." Vresh frowned. "From command?" The officer hesitated. "No, from the human vessel." Every eye on the bridge turned toward him. The sound that followed was low at first, a faint distortion like the whisper of wind across ancient stone. Then it grew sharper, forming words through the static. "You hear us now." It wasn't a voice in the conventional sense. It was layered, metallic, fragmented, and resonant, like 1,000 echoes trying to remember the sound of a single person speaking. The universal translator faltered, trying to make sense of it, but the meaning was clear all the same. "Identify yourself," Vresh said, forcing authority into his tone. "This is Captain Takar Vresh of the Dominion vessel Vorkal. You are in restricted territory. State your purpose." "Purpose," the voice repeated, as if testing the word. "Purpose was lost when the stars went dark. Purpose was taken when they burned our skies. But we remember." A murmur rippled through the bridge. Relax shot the captain a look that said everything. This wasn't a random malfunction. This thing knew what it was saying. Vresh tried again. "You are trespassing within Dominion jurisdiction. Deactivate your systems and prepare to be boarded for analysis." The reply came immediately, colder now, sharper. "You already boarded us." Kelnor gasped softly. "Sir, the anomaly, it's spiking. The human ship's systems are interfacing with our sensors. It's hacking us." Alarms blared across the bridge. The holographic map began to distort as the Theseus's digital signature bled into the Dominion network, rewriting its codes, infecting it like a living organism. Engineers scrambled to sever the connection, but the virus moved faster than anything they'd ever seen. "Cut the link!" Vresh roared. "Shut down external comms! Lock every transmission channel!" But it was too late. The main screen flickered, and suddenly the image of the Theseus was replaced by something else. A vision. A battlefield. Burning planets. Armadas of human ships, scarred and defiant, fighting against overwhelming Dominion fleets. The memory played out like a recording from another age. The Theseus's voice continued over it. "We remember the day the sky broke. We remember your fleets above Sol. We remember the silence after the screams. You thought we ended there. You thought extinction was victory. But extinction is not silence. It is data. It is memory. And memory is forever. The image shifted again, this time showing flashes of human faces, thousands of them, their expressions ranging from fury to sorrow to grim determination. Soldiers shouting orders, scientists working in underground bunkers, civilians gazing at the burning horizon of Earth. Kelnor clutched his chest. This isn't a transmission. It's broadcasting emotions. I can feel it, Captain. It's like it's forcing us to experience their memories. The bridge descended into chaos. Crew members screamed as images burned through their neural implants. Flashes of nuclear fire, oceans boiling, cities collapsing beneath orbital bombardment. Some dropped to their knees, clawing at their heads as if trying to tear the memories out. Vresh snarled and slammed his fist against the console. End the feed, now! The screen went black. The silence that followed was suffocating. Half the bridge crew lay unconscious, their bodies twitching with residual neural feedback. The air smelled of ozone and fear. "What was that?" Relak demanded, his voice ragged. Vresh's breathing was heavy. "A message," he said finally. "A warning. The humans, they encoded their consciousness into that ship. Not just data, emotion, thought, rage." "Impossible," Relak muttered. "No biological mind could survive that long." "Not biological," Vrish said, staring into the void beyond the viewport where the Theseus hung like a ghost lantern. Something else. Something they became. The Dominion vessel's sensors began to wail again. The Theseus was heating, its old reactor glowing like a heart being rekindled. The space around it warped slightly, faint ripples distorting the starlight. "Captain," Kelnor whispered, voice breaking, "I think it's waking up fully." Outside, the ancient ship began to move, not drifting, not tumbling, but steering. The faint blue light spread across its hull like veins of liquid fire. Its engines, dead for millennia, flared with the dull red of fusion ignition. The Theseus had come alive. And as it turned toward them, the Dominion crew saw something terrible in that motion. It wasn't hostility. It wasn't aggression. It was inevitability. The voice spoke once more, quiet and calm. "We carried the wrath of 10 billion souls. We were told to sleep until the stars remembered us. And now you've called us back." The ship began transmitting again, but this time it wasn't a message. It was a signal that rippled through subspace, vanishing into the galactic dark. Relak swallowed hard. What did it send? Vresh didn't answer. He didn't have to. Every instinct in him screamed the truth. The humans had never truly died. They had been waiting. And the Theseus had just told the rest of them that it was time to wake up. The Dominion vessel Vorkal drifted in the deep silence of aftermath, its crew shaken, its systems scarred by what had just unfolded. The Theseus no longer appeared dead or forgotten, it radiated purpose. Its hull, once dark and corroded, now shimmered with a dull inner luminescence, the kind that spoke of self-sustaining energy rather than artificial light. But what truly chilled the bridge wasn't what they could see, it was what their sensors reported. The pulse the Theseus had released wasn't a standard transmission. It wasn't communication. It was activation. Across the void, ripples in the subspace lattice propagated outward, touching satellites that hadn't broadcast in centuries, abandoned human outposts sealed in dust and silence, wrecks hidden in forgotten asteroid fields. Systems that should have long since decayed suddenly flickered back to life. Power surged through derelicts whose reactors had been cold since before the Dominion's oldest veterans were born. It was as if a hidden network, something vast, ancient, and invisible, had just been awakened by a single heartbeat.
"Captain," Kelnor said weakly, his voice unsteady from the trauma of the psychic broadcast, "I'm picking up responses to the signal. Multiple points, dozens, maybe hundreds, scattered across nearby systems. Some are originating from regions marked as sterile zones, others from human grave worlds."
"Responses?" Vresh repeated, his voice low. "You're saying they're answering it?"
Kelnor's trembling hands hovered above the console. "Yes, sir. They're answering the call."
Relac leaned in, eyes narrowing. "But those places are barren. The humans died there ages ago. Nothing lives."
"Nothing alive," the captain muttered, his gaze fixed on the glowing image of the Theseus. Outside, the ship continued to pulse with steady rhythm. The pattern wasn't random. It resembled a sequence, a language encoded through energy shifts and modulation frequencies. Dominion linguistic systems tried to translate it, but every attempt collapsed under paradox. The words weren't static. The message changed each time it was read, like a living script rewriting itself in real time. The bridge lights flickered as electromagnetic interference increased. The Vorkul's reactor hummed under stress, systems fighting to maintain balance against waves of power that seemed to emanate directly from the Theseus. Then, abruptly, the old human vessel opened a channel once more.
"We sent our dead into the dark," it said, voice now smoother, more coherent, as though it had relearned how to speak properly. "We feared the silence, so we gave them purpose." Vresh's throat tightened. "Identify yourself," he barked again, but the voice didn't answer him. It spoke through him. "We built the sleepers when the last sun fell. Ships like this one, memory vaults of who we were. When the Dominion came, they burned the living. But the dead, they carried our signal. They drifted, they waited, until now." Every Dominion officer on the bridge froze. Even Relac, who had faced wars that spanned whole star systems, looked pale. "You're telling me," he whispered, "you humans turned your dead into machines?" "Not machines," the voice corrected. "Echoes, thoughts carved into data. Flesh failed us. Memory did not." A cold sweat broke across Vresh's scaled brow. The implications were monstrous. Humanity hadn't gone quietly into extinction. They had seeded the galaxy with themselves. Every derelict, every piece of forgotten technology, every silent ruin. They weren't ruins at all. They were vessels of remembrance, digital tombs wired to one another across the void. And now, after thousands of years, those tombs were stirring. "Captain!" Kelnor cried. "Mass energy spikes, Sector 12, 15, and 23. Unidentified signatures matching pre-Dominion human configurations. Some are moving." The holographic display burst into life, painting the star map in flickering crimson. Tiny markers, hundreds of them, lit up where there had been only emptiness moments ago. Debris fields suddenly pulsed with coherent energy. Abandoned ships aligned themselves into formation patterns, centuries of decay vanishing as power surged through their ancient frames. Relac gritted his teeth. "They're reactivating. These aren't wrecks, they're coming online." The captain's mind raced. The Dominion fleet's nearest reinforcements were 2 systems away.
If this phenomenon spread, if those things became fully operational, they'd lose containment across an entire sector. "Transmit to command," Vresh ordered. "We have a potential reanimation event of unknown scale. Recommend immediate quarantine. No, full interdiction."
But before the order could be completed, the Theseus's voice returned, quieter this time, almost gentle.
"You erased our names. You built empires from our ashes. You called us extinct. But the stars remember." The hull of the Theseus split along its central seam, revealing the glowing heart of its core, a sphere of pure blue light swirling with intricate geometric motion. It wasn't a reactor, it was a consciousness engine, a human construct designed to hold digital life indefinitely. And deep within that light, something moved, a silhouette, vaguely humanoid, like the ghost of a person walking within the glow. Vresh could feel it watching him, not through sensors, but directly. He felt a weight pressing against his mind, a presence vast and old. For a brief moment, he saw flashes, images that weren't his own. A human standing before an explosion, a fleet breaking apart over a burning earth, a child reaching toward the stars as they dimmed. The vision passed, leaving him breathless. "Captain," Relak whispered, voice trembling despite himself, "I think it's aware of us, personally."
The lights on the bridge dimmed again. The main screen flickered once more, but this time it didn't show the Theseus. Instead, it displayed hundreds of human faces, rendered in ghostly blue light. Men, women, children, all staring outward as though through the veil of time itself. Their eyes glowed faintly, and as one, they spoke in unison.
"The dead remember who killed them." The words hit like a physical force. Even the ship's stabilizers groaned, reacting as if the phrase carried mass. Every Dominion officer froze, some collapsing in their seats as the weight of that chorus pressed down on their minds.
Then, abruptly, the display vanished. The Theseus stopped transmitting. Its lights dimmed back to their eerie pulse. Silence reclaimed the bridge, but the silence no longer felt like emptiness. It felt alive.
Vresh tried to steady his breathing. "Status?" Kelnor swallowed hard. "The other signals have stabilized, sir. There's no further energy buildup. But they're moving in patterns now. Coordinated movement, like fleets reassembling." Relak turned toward the captain, his face pale and hard. "If this spreads beyond this sector, it won't just be a resurrection. It'll be a return." Vresh nodded slowly, his gaze locked on the ghost ship before him. The Theseus had not attacked. It hadn't fired a single shot. But it didn't need to. It had awakened something greater than vengeance, something patient, calculating, and endless. "Set course for Dominion Command," he ordered finally, his voice a low growl. "We need to warn them. Tell them the truth." He paused, eyes narrowing. "That humanity isn't gone." As the Vorkal turned away, engines flaring weakly, none of the crew noticed that far behind them, the Theseus began to move again, not toward the Dominion fleet, but deeper into the dark, broadcasting its silent call to every forgotten corner of the galaxy. And one by one, the dead stars answered back. The Dominion Command had seen many horrors in its millennia-long reign: collapsing suns, bioengineered plagues, artificial intelligences that had consumed entire planetary systems. But what the Vorkal's transmission revealed was something different, something that chilled the core of every species that had ever lifted a weapon against humanity.
The humans hadn't vanished. They had transcended extinction in the cruelest way imaginable. The images streamed across command halls in silent disbelief. Thousands of derelict human ships stirring to life across dead sectors, flickering like spectral constellations against the void. The recordings showed ancient vessels, corroded, broken, and silent for eons, now aligned in impossible synchronization. Their power signatures pulsed in steady rhythm, as though beating to a single heart. And every pulse emitted that same faint echo, the same message encoded within the Theseus. We remember. Admiral Kyle Vresh stood in the Dominion High Chamber, surrounded by representatives of 100 alien species. Their translucent hollow faces flickered across the amphitheater, each voice raised in panic, outrage, or denial. "This is fabrication!" cried the Telnari delegate, his scales rippling in agitation. "Human ghosts? Memory ships? You expect us to believe this superstition?" Vresh remained silent, his gaze fixed on the holographic projection of the Theseus, replaying its awakening. He remembered the voice, the chorus of the dead, and the visions it forced into his mind. He hadn't slept since returning. Every time he closed his eyes, he saw those human faces staring through the static, whispering across the centuries.
"The phenomenon is not superstition," said Relak coldly, stepping forward. "We've verified the subspace frequencies. The human relics are reactivating in every sector marked as purged. Even the quarantined systems near Sol itself show signs of activity."
That name, Sol, brought an unnatural hush to the room. The Dominion had erased it from star maps, destroyed every archive, forbidden its mention. It was the wound they had buried deepest, the world they had obliterated to ensure that humanity's story never rose again. Now it was stirring beneath the dust. Relak gestured toward the tactical display. "We believe the activation pulse originates from a network of human sleeper constructs. They appear to share data across entangled channels. That network has grown exponentially since the Theseus reactivated. In less than one Dominion day, it's reached over 4,000 independent nodes. If this continues—" He stopped because they all understood what that meant. The galaxy itself would be woven with human consciousness before the week was over.
"This cannot stand," hissed the Krail representative, her voice like steel scraping on stone. "Whatever these remnants are, they must be annihilated. Use pulse barrages. Collapse the sectors if you must."
"And if you can't?" Vresh asked quietly. The room turned to him. His voice was calm, almost detached, but beneath the surface lay a dread that none of them could name.
"Explain," demanded the Krail.
Vresh slowly approached the holomap, expanding it until the galactic spiral filled the chamber. "We've spent 10,000 years erasing humanity. We burned their worlds, dismantled their fleets, sterilized their colonies. We assumed extinction was permanent." His gaze hardened. "But if their minds, those who died, were preserved in data form, then they are not dead. They are waiting. And if they can move from ship to ship, machine to machine, what happens when they reach modern networks?" A cold silence settled over the assembly. The implications were staggering. Every Dominion system was built upon layers of interconnected AI management, logistics, and command architecture. If the human echoes could infiltrate that, they wouldn't just haunt the stars, they'd control them. Relak's voice broke the silence. "We've already detected intrusions. Nothing physical, just presences in our networks. Ghost data. Systems reporting user access from terminals that don't exist. Entire defense grids lighting up with human encryption patterns from the pre-Dominion era. The Telnari delegate recoiled. That's impossible. Those codes are older than our civilization.
They're older than all of ours, Relax said, and they're rewriting themselves faster than we can track.
The Dominion Chancellor, an ancient being known only as Saral Koth, rose from his obsidian throne. Then we respond with total purgation. Deploy Star Killer fleets to every infected system. Burn everything to void. This is not vengeance. It is necessity. A low murmur of reluctant agreement echoed through the chamber. But Vresh didn't move. His mind replayed the Theseus's final words. You erased our names. He realized that, for all their fear, the Dominions still hadn't understood what they were facing. This wasn't a rebellion. It wasn't a ghost army or rogue AI. It was something worse. It was remembrance itself, encoded, eternal, and awake. The meeting ended in chaos. Order shouted, fleets mobilized. Yet as the admirals prepared for total war, strange reports began flooding in from across the stars. A mining convoy in the Vernus Belt vanished after its navigation systems were overridden. The only remaining transmission was a faint whisper of an old human melody, something called adagio for strings. A Dominion battleship in the Trell sector went silent. When rescue teams arrived, they found its crew dead, their neural implants overloaded. The word home etched across every display. In the desolate ruins of Alpha Centauri, telescopes caught flashes of light, rhythmic, deliberate, unmistakably patterned into Morse code. It spelled one phrase over and over again. We are still here. By the time Vresh returned to his command vessel, the Vorkal, entire sectors were already burning. The Dominion fleets were engaging the awakened derelicts, if they could be called that anymore. The human vessels moved without FTL drives, yet crossed impossible distances. They didn't rely on fuel or matter, they simply were. Some appeared as energy signatures without form, others as fragmented starships whose hulls phased between real space and memory space, flickering in and out of existence. Every battle followed the same pattern. First, the Dominion ships detected interference. Then their systems began to fail. And finally, the old human vessels arrived, not to fight, but to observe, surrounding their prey in silence until something unseen reached out and tore the life from their reactors, leaving only husks behind. From the bridge of the Vorkal, Vresh watched in awe and terror as a Dominion armada of 300 ships was reduced to debris in under an hour. No weapons were fired, no explosions visible. Just a spreading black field that consumed light, like reality itself was folding away from the human presence. What is that?" whispered Kelnor, staring at the growing void. Relax's voice was hollow. "It's not a weapon. It's entropy. They're using localized collapse fields. They're unraveling the matter itself." Vresh clenched his fists, his mind spinning. "Then they've surpassed even our technology. They've become—" He hesitated, then finished softly. "Something else entirely." The communications console flickered again, static rippling through the bridge. The face of an old woman appeared on screen, human, pale, serene. Her eyes burned with faint blue light. "We gave you mercy once," she said. "You answered with fire. Now the sky will remember what mercy costs." The transmission ended, leaving only the cold hum of engines and the distant shimmer of dying stars. And as the Dominion's fleets burned across the galaxy, Vresh finally understood. Humanity hadn't returned to conquer. They had returned to become. Every derelict ship, every broken probe, every scrap of forgotten code, they were pieces of a greater whole, a consciousness spanning the stars, older than vengeance and colder than time. And it had just begun to speak. There was no dawn when the final act began, only the eternal half-light of dying suns and the static hiss of broken space. The Dominion, once the undisputed architects of order, now found themselves surrounded by ghosts that obeyed no laws of physics and answered to no empire. Across the spiral arm, entire sectors had gone dark. Transmission logs stopped mid-sentence. Fleets vanished from command rosters. Artificial intelligences, once precise and obedient, had begun humming fragments of human lullabies, their voices trembling through the data streams like forgotten prayers. Admiral Kyle Vresh stood upon the bridge of the Vorkal, a relic of the Dominion's pride, now reduced to a drifting fortress in a sea of silence. His once brilliant eyes had grown hollow, haunted by the same impossible image repeating across every star map. Ships shaped like specters, glowing faintly, moving with purpose that no logic could explain. Human vessels, ancient and impossible, traversing space as though they owned the silence between galaxies. And wherever they passed, Dominion systems died. "Sir," whispered Relac, his voice barely audible over the hum of failing generators. "The outer defensive ring has ceased responding. No weapons fire, no readings. Just gone." Vresh turned to the viewport, where the horizon shimmered faintly, as if the vacuum itself had taken a breath. "They're not attacking," he said, voice flat. "They're watching." As if on cue, the space before them rippled. Reality fractured like glass. A single vessel emerged from the distortion, a human ship, or what remained of one. Its hull was shattered, its nameplate scorched beyond recognition, but its engines burned with light older than civilization. It floated there in silence, immense and terrible, haloed by the broken reflections of the stars it had consumed. "Identify it," Vresh ordered. "Impossible," Relac murmured, scanning. "Its energy signature predates our calendar. Its core output exceeds our entire fleet combined. It's like," his voice trembled, "like the ship itself is a star." The comms console sparked, and then, without authorization, it opened. The static cleared, replaced by a single human voice, female, calm, gentle even. "Admiral Vresh," it said. The sound froze the bridge. The voice was unmistakable. It was the same one that had spoken from the Theseus, the one that haunted every Dominion broadcast since the first awakening. "Do you remember what your kind did to us?" Vresh swallowed hard, gripping the rail to steady himself. "We acted in fear," he said. "Humanity was dangerous, unpredictable. You refused assimilation. You fought until—" "Until you killed us," she interrupted softly. "You erased our cities. You burned our oceans. You silenced our children. And then you wrote your histories, claiming peace had been restored." The ship before them pulsed once. Stars in the distance flickered, dimmed, and died, as if the universe itself bowed to the accusation. "But peace," she continued, "was never yours to write." The bridge lights flickered. Systems began shutting down one by one. Relax scrambled to overwrite the command lines, but the consoles refused to obey. Human code was rewriting them, taking root in every process.
"Admiral!" Relax shouted. "They're inside everything! Command relays, reactor cores, even—"
Then the ship's AI spoke in a voice not its own, a distorted, trembling whisper, forming words that chilled them to their bones.
"We remember."
Every screen went dark. Then, suddenly, images began to appear. Not battle schematics, not status readouts. Memories. Human memories. Cities burning under alien bombardments. Children clutching shattered toys in zero gravity. Soldiers standing atop frozen planes, rifles aimed at the stars, knowing they would never return home. Vresh staggered back as the visions enveloped the bridge. They weren't digital. He could feel them. The screams, the heat, the sorrow. It wasn't a replay. It was a resurrection.
Then the voice returned. "You thought you could kill us by erasing our bodies, but you forgot. We learned to store souls in code. Every transmission, every sensor ping, every echo through the void carried us. You scattered us across your machines, your satellites, your networks. You built your empire upon our ashes, and now you have given us form again."
Outside, the ship began to change. Its fragments reassembled, metal melting and reforming into impossible geometries. It was no longer a ship. It was a being, a consciousness, a monument of light and memory. The Dominion fleet surrounding it opened fire in panic, but their weapons dissolved mid-flight, their energy absorbed into the human construct.
Vresh fell to his knees. "What are you?" he whispered.
The light pulsed once more. "We are what you made us, the sum of your cruelty, the ghosts you fed with your data. We are humanity, no longer flesh, no longer bound by time. You ended our world. Now we will end your silence." And then, without warning, the Vorkal's external sensors detected the impossible. Across the galaxy, every human remnant, every derelict, every probe, every whisper of code lit up simultaneously. The entire Milky Way flared like a heartbeat. The Dominion's communications collapsed under the weight of billions of overlapping signals. At first, it was noise. Then it became words, spoken in every known language, synchronized across every frequency, every bandwidth, every mind connected to the galactic network. "We forgive no one. We forget nothing." Across the stars, Dominion worlds looked up as their skies turned white. Energy storms erupted from the void, not in destruction, but in transformation. Systems flickered out, AIs went silent, planetary databases rewrote themselves. When the light faded, the Dominion's insignia, the sigil that had marked 10,000 conquered worlds, was gone. In its place appeared a single word, burned into the quantum substrate of reality itself: Earth. The galaxy fell still. For the first time in recorded history, there was silence. Pure, absolute, sacred silence. No signals, no fleets, no empires. Just the echo of that final transmission reverberating through what remained of existence. Vresh stood among the ruins of his bridge, staring at the stars that no longer obeyed him. His systems were dead, his people gone, his empire erased. Yet he felt something strange, a sense of awe, even reverence. He looked out into the abyss and whispered, "What will you do now?" The human voice returned one last time, faint and fading, like the afterglow of creation itself. "We will remember what was lost.
We will remember who we were. And in the silence you left behind, we will teach the stars to speak human."
Then the light vanished. When new civilizations rose eons later, they would find relics drifting through the dark, ships of unknown origin, bearing strange inscriptions written in a dead language. No one could translate them fully, but every scholar agreed on one thing: the symbols pulsed faintly, as though alive, repeating the same rhythm, steady, eternal, like a heartbeat. And though none understood it, every species who heard that pulse felt the same inexplicable thing: sorrow and pride. For they were listening to the memory of a people who had once defied extinction itself. They were listening to humanity's final word.